Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for returning for another segment of Health Professional Radio. We'll be speaking with Mr. Steve Glover in this segment, co-founder, chairman, and CEO of ZyVersa Therapeutics. He's going to talk about what the company's been doing to develop first-in-class drugs for patients with inflammatory or kidney diseases with high unmet medical needs. Welcome to Health Professional Radio. Steve Glover, thank you for joining us.
Great, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, I mentioned that you are co-founder, chairman, and CEO of ZyVersa Therapeutics. Give us a little bit of insight into your professional background. Tell us who Mr. Steve Glover is and what ZyVersa has been up to.
Sure. So I've been fortunate enough to be in the biopharmaceutical industry for almost 40 years now, and started my career at some pretty large companies such as Hoffman Roche and Amgen. And since about 20 years ago, I've been out working and developing and bringing new technologies as an entrepreneur, bringing companies together with the university systems, licensing those technologies and developing them and bringing them into the public domain. So been a pretty busy 40 years. Certainly met a lot of great people and have really hopefully contributed to some better patient care.
What prompted you to create your own company?
Good question. Some people would say I'm a little bit crazy for doing it, but it's a passion of mine. I've always believed that when you look at unmet medical needs and you look at the university and the ability to bring technologies out of the university was always attractive to me. And the ability to form teams of like-minded people to pursue the development of these products has always been attractive to me. So it's really been kind of a love affair, so to speak.
Now, it's my understanding that you've got two lead products in your pipeline in development right now. They both have unique targets in their space. Now, beginning with the kidney disease product, why target renal lipids with so little research being done in that space now?
Yeah, good question. So one of the things my passion has been, I've been in the renal space for a long time at Amgen and Hoffman Roche. And one of the things that interested me in this area is two really key points. One, there's a high unmet medical need here. If you look at it, the Medicare system itself spends about 18% of its budget on renal diseases, and there really hasn't been any innovation in this space in 20 years. So it's a passion, and was able to look at this issue of lipids related to its accumulation around a structure called the podocyte, and it's really become a cutting-edge area for research. And the issue is really simple, as if you can keep the podocyte structure intact around the kidney, you can prevent the progression of kidney disease by keeping this podocyte structure intact. And to do that, you got to remove lipids and cholesterol out of the cells and allow the cells around the kidney to return to homeostasis. So it's really a unique concept. University of Miami was actually the one that did the research on this, and really we're really looking forward to having it in the patients this year.
Now, is this approach expected to be effective for all types of kidney disease?
So it's really a great question. So if you look at the areas of which we studied so far, we studied a couple of orphan indications called FSGS and Alport syndrome. And in addition to that, we studied a much bigger indication called chronic kidney disease. So there seems to be some similarity in the lipid accumulation in those diseases. Whether or not it occurs outside of those diseases, we'll certainly see after we do our first clinical trials and begin to think about what other disease areas in kidney might be affected by this lipid accumulation.
You also have a product in the inflammatory diseases. What are the benefits of targeting these inflammatory diseases over some of the historical approaches?
So one of the things that's really interesting is this explosion in the knowledge around cell biology. And particularly, you're seeing this in the oncology area. You're now seeing it in the area of inflammation. And the way to think about this is inflammation is driven by a cellular event. And there's a doctor out of the University of Yale School of Medicine that coined a term called cellular inflammation factory. And really what's going on here is as a cell gets affected by, let's say, a virus or a pathogen, it has activated the innate immune system. And when that happens, these cells produce cytokines called IL-1 beta and IL-18. And really causes perpetuation of inflammation, which causes damages. And this cytokine storm, so to speak, affects, a variation of diseases, everything from cardiovascular disease, neurologic diseases, diabetic diseases, bone and joint diseases, autoimmune, and even some cancer. So it's a really area of important discovery. It's really begun to take off over the last 10 years. And, it's an area of high interest to not only the pharmaceutical industry, but also to patients.
Now, I did mention, of course, that your lead products each offer a different therapeutic area. Explain to us what a pipeline within a product, what is that concept and how is that achieved?
Sure. So one of the things that you take a look at in a development program such as our inflammatory program is the complexity of inflammation. And when you look at that and you're doing development like we are with a monoclonal antibody or a biologic, there are over 70 potential indications of which you could pursue that have this inflammation issue. So when you think about it that way, you could have one product, in this case, monoclonal antibody, AC100, that could go after 6, 7, 10, 20 indications. So, in industry terms, that becomes kind of a pipeline within a product, giving you multiple indications off of one product.
Now, is that the main reason that monoclonal antibodies over small molecules is the way to go? Or is it the way to go in every situation?
So I think you got to think about how you're approaching the target initially. And small molecules work very well on certain targets, and then monoclonal antibodies work in some diseases much better. We take an approach here for two different reasons. We think a monoclonal antibody is a better approach here, given the certain diseases that we're going after. That allows us to have a very important approach to the development of biologic therapy. They can be dosed a little bit differently. Typically, small molecules are given once a day. A monoclonal antibody might be given, every 3 months or every 6 months. In addition to that, you're trying to find a way to progress a biologic into different tissues. So sometimes it's easier to get a biologic into different tissues and get its penetration. So we think, from a scientific perspective, in the inflammation space that we're at in this inflammasome area, then a monoclonal antibody is a better approach. There are some commercial benefits as well. If you take a look at some of the recent legislation around the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a different length of time as far as the development of the program. For a biologic, you get about 13 years, and in a small molecule, you get about 9 years.
You mentioned legislation. It's my understanding that this total market is over $70 billion. Is the legislation absolutely crucial as far as these products moving forward and being beneficial to both these populations and even more?
I do think it is. I think, healthcare is a very expensive proposition for all of us in the United States. I think getting the legislation appropriately conveyed and supportive of this innovation is highly important. I think what you're seeing is that we're struggling with that, to get the innovation aligned to the need to develop new therapies such as IC100. But also we have to be cognizant of the cost of those new innovation and those new therapies. So I think it's important for us as an industry and as to work very closely with the legislative process to make sure things that are aligned so we can get these new therapies to patients. It really makes a difference in the end.
Give us a website where our listeners can learn more about what's going on at ZyVersa.
Sure. You can reach us at www.zyversa.com and obviously reach out to us. And obviously we have a lot of information provided there as well.
And that's spelled ZyVersa.com, correct?
That's correct, Neil.
Steve, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio.
Thanks, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Steve Glover. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at Anchor, Spotify, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.